Okay, we're talking about Owen Barfield and his book, Saving the Appearances, Study in Idolatry. And we were talking about the assumption. Now let's go at that again. Human beings in the past did not have the same kind of interior life that we do in the present. For example, there's a book called, I'll forget it. I'd have to run and get it. Anyway, you can find material that indicates that the Greeks, for example, didn't see the colors that we see. Certainly in Barfield's book, History in English Words, you can find that the way people used words to apply to certain things is different. As you go in the past, and this is where Barfield went, he studied the history of language, the development of language, and he found that the consciousness of people varies in the past, and it varies considerably. And he goes into great detail in his book, Saving the Appearances, about these things and the implications of it, because the implications of it are enormous. So that's the assumption. The assumption that we live in today is that consciousness is the same all the time, and it's an assumption that doesn't bear any investigation at all, because when you really ask the question and look at the facts that are presented to you, it's just not true. So Barfield, in his book Saving the Appearances, called this an original participation. People felt that they participated in the world. In fact, Barfield goes on to say in there that if you look at the scholastics, you'll find that they use the word participation all the time. And apparently Aquinas or someone actually wrote a book in which every other word was participation, because that's how they felt. They felt themselves embedded in the world. And then that changed. And the result of that change was that we now started to look at the world as an object rather than as part of ourselves. And out of that, natural science arose. So there's very significant things that we need to understand about the way the world actually is. And one of the things that we need to understand is the limits of the assumption. We have to really redefine the past and re-understand the past in reference to the fact that people in the past were not like us. And the differences are enormous, and they will help us understand a great deal about the past that we haven't yet been able to understand. Now, the other thing Barfield talks about is he calls it the omission. Not only is there his assumption, which is palpably untrue when you actually investigate it, but there's an omission. And it's a kind of thing where something is thought, and then the fact that it's thought is ignored almost immediately. Now, what is it that's thought? Well, if you follow the thinking of modern physicists and the development of the thought of the physical sciences over the last 300 or 400 years, you come to pictures of the world in which this object, which is my little controller for the thing, is actually made up of atoms. And atoms are made up of electrons in the nucleus. And there's subatomic particles, and then there's all of that sort of disappears into ideal fields, and then all of that disappears into probability theory, into quantum mechanics. And so the question is, I'm holding this, it's solid, I can't push my hand through it, but the fact is both my hand and this object are mostly empty space. And what's there is sort of only there theoretically. Now, there's a wonderful film you can get your hands on. My girlfriend gave me a DVD of it for Christmas. I've been trying to get my hands on it. It's called Mind Walk, in which this has gone into in some detail, this idea of physics, that there's sort of no there in substance. And even though we think we have all this solidity and we understand the solidity and we're prepared to deal with the solidity, the fact is that from the standpoint of physics, not only aren't things solid, but they're indeterminate. And everybody sort of knows about this, but the interesting thing, and this is what Barfield calls the omission, it says immediately we live in the world, we forget that we have this idea. When I look at an object, like this is my cup, in which I have a hot chocolate that I've been drinking this morning, I see a cup, I see hot chocolate, I drink it, it goes inside me, something happens inside me. I can understand these processes if I study nutrition. Yeah. Well, from the standpoint of physics, is it there? Their models don't have the cup. Their models have all this mathematics and this strange stuff. And in my bookstore you'll find some comments on what might be called the problem of the theory of everything that the physicist searches for his holy grail. And he wants to have this mathematical model of the universe. And my gosh, what does he end up with? Well, he ends up with a picture in his mathematics, you know. It's very wonderful. There it is on the page, mathematics, and he sends it to another guy, and they look at it as mathematics, and it's wonderful. And maybe 20 people in the world can understand it, but pretty soon they're all saying, oh, this is it. This is the theory of everything. We now understand everything. Oh, really? Well, can you explain to me why I see? Well, yes, I can. For light waves and da-da-da-da-da, and then go on into their thing, and they get back into the mathematics again. No. That's not my question. That's how you think I see. That's how. I want to understand why I see. You see, why did the universe make me be able to see? Well, it's Darwinian evolution, and there's da-da-da-da-da, and random chance, and da-da-da, and all this other stuff, and wait a minute. You're still with how. My question is why. Why do I bear within me the capacity to go out at night and look at the starry world and feel wonder? Why can I watch a sunset day after day and never see the same sunset and be amazed? Why are there nearly 7 billion people in the world and none of them are like each other? When you get to the fundamental, none of them are like each other. Why? Now, Barfield calls that world with which we are familiar with, the familiar world, the appearances. And what he tries to do in this book, Saving the Appearances, is to get us to understand that there is a why. There is a point that the world appears the way it is. And even though physics has created these incredibly intricate mathematical models by which it thinks it explains everything, it doesn't actually explain anything. Why? Because as science developed its ideas, it systematically excluded things it couldn't count. That is, it only studied quantities, not qualities. So the delight that comes with my perception of a sunset or a starry sky, or the amazement I feel when I play with my children, that can't be counted. And so it's omitted. It's called reductionism. Sir Arthur Eddington in the beginning of the 20th century said, we know more and more about less and less. That's enough for now.